1:30, and Siobhan Proctor will now explain why we're having this meeting.
Team, I'm going to. All right, I'll just wait till people are seated. I've got a coming up slide. Oh, can we, who's controlling slides? Oh, okay. All right, welcome. So the purpose of today's briefing is to bring councillors up to date with where we've got to since we've brought this project in-house. So last June, council approved the traffic resolutions and the associated design for the Golden Mile, which was then at 60% design. We've since progressed that. We're almost at 100% design, so we want to present that design. So there'll be a bit of a deep dive into what we're planning to deliver on the Golden Mile. And also an opportunity to present the new team to you. So we brought this project in from Let's Get Wellington Moving at the beginning of March. So we've got a number of the team here. And we've got a few people who will be able to answer questions and so forth. I'm going to do a very quick round of introductions. You know Brad Singh, obviously. We have Sharon Pradakal there at the end. She is our Programme Director, so she looks after Golden Mile and Thorndon Quay projects. We've got Amy, who is our Design Manager. We've got Mandy. Can you stand up at the back? Where's Mandy? Oh, there she is. Mandy's over there. Hey, Mandy. Who is our Principal Engagement Lead. We've got Dan Males, who is our Landscape Architect and Designer, so he leads the design team. Len Hettet, who I think is online. Hi, Len. So Len's been helping with all of the beautiful iwi artwork that you'll see reflected in the design. Roger Burrough, who you will know from previous appearances at council. He's our Transport Director at WSP. Wave your hand, Roger. We've got Asher Wilson Goldman, who's our Principal Communication and Engagement Advisor on the project. Lauren Blackwell, who is our Senior Engagement Advisor. Where's Lauren at the front there? David Boyd from Greater Wellington Regional Council, who's a Customer Experience Manager, and Alex Campbell, who you will all know as well from GWRC. And I think we also have Chair Darren Ponter. Did I see him walk in? Yeah, you spotted. So welcome, Darren. Okay, can we flick through the slides? Who's in control? Oh, here we go. There we go. All right, so coming up, things to look forward to. Yes, you can get the slides, yep. So this is the briefing, design drop-in. This is your opportunity to really look at the detailed design, to ask the design team a whole lot of questions, and for us to give you a bit of an update on the engagement to date. Next week, we've got a briefing workshop which will be led by Liam and his team around the Wellington City Transport Plan. We've also got a workshop on the Central City projects and what's included in that programme. We have Regional Councillor being briefed on the Rapid Transit Bus Corridor projects, which we will touch on, and I'll just put that into a bit of a context in one of the slides coming up. And then we have a District Plan paper coming to the 12th September Environment and Infrastructure Committee. Which is around whether council should be running a designation process for a mass rapid transit route. And then on the 26th of September, we're reporting back to the LTP Finance and Performance Committee as per the instruction of the notice of motion, which was heard back in May, I think, May. So that was one of the resolutions that came out of that. So just in terms of the agenda, we'll run through a bit of a recap on the Golden Mile, what's brought us to this point, what the proposed transport changes are. We'll provide an engagement update. Then we'll just pause. Are we doing the design update first? Then we'll do the design update. Then we'll pause for questions. So we'll open up for questions. And then we'll do the last half hour. We'll do some breakout groups, and you can go and have a look around various aspects of the design. Done the team introductions. So I'm going to tag team with Liam on... Oh, do I need to tag team with you? I probably don't, Liam.
Look, I'm happy to help you.
Help me when I struggle.
Borny.
Okay.
I think that just maybe introduce this slide, Councillor. So, look, 7.5 years of Let's Get Wellington moving and 5 to 7 months of trying to, understand what transpired over that period of time. I thought this was a really helpful slide because it just separates those big projects that are receiving a lot of attention at the moment, Golden Mile, Thornton Quay Hut Road, and what those major transport projects are in a bundle back at the home of Wellington City Council. But also the City Streets program, which everyone will be reasonably familiar with, and that really boils down to bus priority and city centre upgrades. Now, the key project that the Greater Wellington Regional Council and the Wellington City Council are working on is the Harbour Quays, what they call the second spine or the rapid bus project, and that's only just standing up at the moment. We're forming the steering group and getting the team in place. And then, of course, the other two projects relating to what was the Let's Get Wellington Moving City Streets program. Since then, as you all know, we have commenced the Wellington City Transport Plan, and that was a resolution that Council made on the back of a couple of recommendations ago, council meetings that looked at trying to pull all this stuff together. There's been, generally speaking, from a planning point of view, you could argue there's a bit of vacuum from a strategic transport planning point of view, and you councillors were very keen on understanding what a integrated transport plan for the city would look like, and pull all these strands together, whether it's walking, busing, cycling, private motor vehicle, trains, etc. So that work's kicking off, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about that next week.
Hand over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Siobhan. Good afternoon, councillors. I just thought I would kick off my team's update to you with a bit of a recap on the history to date. I won't labour the point, but as a timeline, it was many years ago, actually, December 2021, the endorsed preferred option that came out of the single-stage business case process was brought in to the design team to go through a process which we call developed to detailed design as part of preparing information for construction. So the developed design went through an initial round of road safety audits and safety in design and SEPTED audits, and the developed design came to you councillors in about June 2023 as part of a report around approving the traffic resolutions. In parallel, there was some public engagement that was run with businesses and other stakeholders around the SSBC optioneering. And also as part of the traffic resolution process, there was another round of public engagement. The developed design was endorsed 29th of June, traffic resolutions also approved, and then that kicked off the detailed design sprint. And under Let's Get Wellington Moving, a future group with a consortium that took that forward up until the program dissolved in December 23. So there was a little bit of a hiatus while the projects, as Liam explained, were cut up and redistributed between the partners of Let's Get Wellington Moving. And it was about April that Wellington City's team was stood up, and we picked up the design and went through a bit of a review process and re-engaged our own SMEs to kind of get to where we are. And Amy will talk through that a little bit further. In parallel, we've been reintroducing us as the team leading the Golden Mile project to key stakeholders and businesses, seeking feedback from them around our construction planning, and obviously trying to build shared understanding with yourselves and the public around what is the Golden Mile, what is it trying to achieve, and where we're at. So very quickly, the Golden Mile objectives were set quite early in the piece, and it largely still holds. One of the things we took the opportunity to add was resilience around our three waters. So when it came in-house, we picked up a piece of work Let's Get Wellington Moving had done around scoping up a must-do list, working with Wellington Water, and our team have picked that up and are continuing that forward. The other thing that we've been working with the team is really around what does the permit system and what does the traffic resolutions mean. So a number of traffic resolutions were approved in that June 23 milestone, and essentially it does mean that there is a new way of working, not just in Courtenay Place and Lambton Quay covering the full Golden Mile. But relevant to Courtenay Place was a determination that it won't just be no private vehicles, that there would be some timing around when private vehicles could enter the corridor. And this was reflecting on the fact Courtenay Place is an entertainment area, and ability to drop off people, particularly those with mobility issues, was seen as beneficial. So there is all vehicle access at night, but bus priority during the day. And this is just a wee overview of the traffic control. So we're still working with the parking and enforcement team to set out the clear criteria and rules for those who can be authorised to access this corridor. So while we say no private vehicles, those with a permit or is authorised can still access this corridor for commercial reasons and also enabling business activity. So that system is being designed and working with the team around comms around its implementation. It's a good segue to Mandy.
Kia ora, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a chat about communications and engagement. As we know, it's a really diverse group of people that we engage with, and Let's Get Wellington Moving, as you know, did quite a lot of engagement prior to coming into Wellington City Council. However, we did hear loud and clear that actually we really need to up our game with businesses. We heard that both directly from businesses and from you as a council, and so we've really been looking at our approach to comms and engagement to ensure that we are approaching it in a tailored way for our businesses. So what a business might need might not be the same as the public or a community group or an advocacy group. So I'm very focused on making sure that we do that. One of the other things that I think is really critical and important with the way we approach this work is to ensure that all of our stakeholders, everybody who is out in the community and businesses, really understand the design. You know, we've learned from projects that we've previously delivered or delivering at the moment, and people understanding what the design is delivering, the benefits, the features and the impacts that it has on them is critical and important. Equally, talking about construction, what construction will be like, having the detail around that, making sure that people know what is coming, when it's coming and what it will mean to them is critical. So ensuring that we have the right information at the right time, early, so not waiting until we're in construction to be engaging, but engage early and often, continue to have those relationships through the process of construction, the middle and the end, making sure that we have face-to-face conversations, so boots on the ground, getting and talking to businesses, understanding what their distinct needs are, having people available to answer those questions quickly and effectively, ensuring that we can take along SMEs, so subject matter experts in particular areas. So for example, when we're talking about design, we have the designers go along. When we're talking about construction, we have the construction experts coming along. So they are the types of things that we need to make sure that we really change up. Making it easy for people to understand. This is really complex information. And I don't know about you, but I've had to look at the map maps and the plans multiple times to really get my head around what this means. So ensuring we have excellent collateral for the public, for businesses, so that we can show them exactly what this means for them. And so we've been working hard to really ramp up that collateral and have a good suite available for when we're going out and talking to businesses. It's also really important that people can understand what they can influence. So we need to be clear up front what has been agreed, what has council signed off, what has been approved, so that when we're going out and talking to people, we're clear that these things cannot be changed. However, we can work with you over certain elements, and making sure that we go back, loop around, and ensure that if we make a commitment to do something, we're following up and letting people know that we're doing that. But also equally, if we can't do something, going back and closing that loop, making sure people understand why we can't do it and providing them the rationale of that. So they're some of the key elements of kind of the changes that we've made to the strategy of engagement. And I could go into a lot more detail, but I think sometimes actually just telling you how that has landed on the ground is probably richer. And so over the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, we've actually been out engaging with businesses on the ground. And so far, we've actually connected with 80 businesses around Courtenay Place in that precinct. So we've gone to talk to them, make sure they've got information, and equally that we have their information. And we're not just talking to somebody who might be behind the counter, we're finding out who is the owner, who is the manager, how do we make sure we're talking to the right people. We've canvassed multiple businesses around when they, so what their perception is of starting work. How important is the Christmas period for them, and when would be the best time to kick off any construction? And so we've had some great information back saying, you know, given that the economic situation for businesses is really tough at the moment, you know, how can we ensure we're supporting them to make the most of that period of time and then start construction after that period? So that's been really useful. We've also met with multiple businesses around the slip lane area. We are offering one-on-one sessions with our design folk, and many people have taken that up, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, not everybody has, but we will keep trying. We're not going to stop. We will keep going back, and we will keep trying to make sure that people have the right information so that they can understand, you know, what it is that's going to be impacting them. I think one of the key pieces of feedback through this engagement that we have received is certainty. Businesses really want certainty. It is incredibly difficult to do planning if you don't know what's coming, and you need that planning well in advance. So if I can leave that with you, certainty is key. Thank you.
Right. Kia ora koutou. Turn my mic on. Amy Hobbs, I'm the design manager council side. And yeah, I guess leading the team of consultants from landscape architects, civils, signals, arborists, as well as our subject matter expert inputs. Mandy's already mentioned that we've been going out and talking to businesses as well, getting their feedback and incorporating where we can changes and tweaks that will help them do business better in the street. One key thing to note is that we picked up the design from Let's Get Wellington Moving when it was at 80%. So they got it to 80% last year, end of last year. There was a round of subject matter expert feedback that went in that myself and I was on the tag, a few other tag members from Regional Council and Waka Kotahi NZTA also collated. So when we stood up, when our team stood up March, April this year, we were able to relook at that feedback as we went into our review process, which Sharon's already mentioned. So we're looking at things as how can we still deliver on the benefits, but be a bit smarter, not a bit smarter, it's a normal process to go through when you review a design around buildability. What can we do to ensure efficiencies in the design are achieved while it's delivering on the benefits? Quick recap on the 4 high-level benefits, which is move more reliable, a faster, more reliable bus system, improved pedestrian safety, improved pedestrian convenience, increased amenity value. And of course, there's the fifth one that wasn't in the SSBC, and that's around our water improvements and working closely with Wellington Water. So we've brought that into our fold as well. Maybe we'll flick to the next slide. So yeah, allowing more space for people, more than 15% increase from the current area, and allows dining or events on both sides of the street at Courtenay Place, in sunny areas as well. But we are mindful of the feedback that we're getting from businesses around the covered dining area as well. So reducing cars will make it safer. About 50% of all pedestrian crashes on the Golden Mile were found to involve private vehicles. And we're also got a big program around the lighting, and not just street lighting, but also amenity lighting, and working with our events team. So a quick recap on the design. I know the focus today is Courtenay Place. You remember the Courtenay Place eastern end is being realigned to face the embassy rather than Marjorie Banks, so that its embassy becomes the apron. And this creates a lot of beautiful space, public ground space for businesses and for greening and for art either side of the carriageway. It enables us also to rework the grades. So you'll see in front of the tasting room where they've got their existing tables and chairs, it's quite on a bit of a slant because it's on the carriageway and the old parking. So we're going to be able to resolve all those grades as well to create these nice outdoor dining opportunities. We have a policy of pedestrian access area against the building line, which is around accessibility, and we've been working with a number of accessibility groups, plus have undertaken 2 major accessibility audits. And that's 4 metres on Lambton Quay and 3 metres on Courtenay, and that just allows for that safe passage of people across the front of the building so they can access the businesses easier. Then we have our furniture zone, which includes the down-in areas plus trees and seats and lights and all of that. And then we have our bus waiting areas. So we've got rationalised bus stops throughout the corridor. We've got David and Alex in the room too. But these are quite large waiting areas with new shelters to house that many people and provide shelter and their seating. And the beauty of the design and responding to all the different audiences that we're designing for is it allows these activities to happen without people kind of bumping into each other all the time. So it's about efficiency of movement and waiting within the corridor. So we do have a bunch of plans and models to show you to talk through, and you guys can ask all the questions. We have been working really closely with Mana Whenua and with Len Hettet, the designer, and he's going to talk through the cultural heritage narrative in the landscape, the Awa crossings, and his vision and Mana Whenua's vision for how that's also going to be incorporated into the Golden Mile project. So Len, I might just hand over to you there.
Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi kia koutou e hui mai tēnei rā. My name is Len Hettet, here mandated by Mana Whenua, iwi Te Atiawa Taranaki Whānui, and representing them on their behalf. Can we please flick to the next slide? First and foremost, one of the aspirations for Mana Whenua was to acknowledge who we are in this space and place. It's uplifting the mana and prominence of Mana Whenua and Te Whanganui Ātara, to educate people who we are and where we stand and what we stand for in this place. So I am here representing Te Atiawa Taranaki Whānui. In doing so, a narrative has been used, which has been passed down through generations for Te Atiawa. And that narrative is Te Ara Tupua. Now, Te Ara Tupua, I'll wrap it up very quickly. It's the formation of the Wellington area. It is the story that talks of two tupua, or two phenomenon, known as Ngaki and Whātaitai, who through seismic activity created the area of guardianship for Mana Whenua, or Tangata Whenua, from the Rimutaka Hills all the way through to the harbour entranceway, or Tūrakirai for us. So for a specific project, we look at the realm of Whātaitai as one of the phenomena. And that area, we call it Tupua Hororangi, the evolving mass of fluidity. So the Western Channel, where Wellington City lies, is known as Tupua Hororangi. The Eastern Channel, which goes up the Eastbourne side and through the Hutt Valley, is known as Tupua Horonuku, the evolving mass of energy. And that is pretty much underlies the story and the acknowledgement of how Te Whanganui Atara, or the Wellington region, was created. And in particular for this project here, the focus is on Whātaitai. So that's basically the embedding narrative that we are using. Can we please switch to the next slide? Through a design process, I've created a cultural overlay, and this cultural overlay has been used to help the design team and all the team members who are involved with the Golden Mile to look at different design thematics, how we look at the design philosophy, embedding a lot of that cultural intent, cultural expression, that narrative that I just talked about, and developing rationales that can be used throughout the project as a foundation that lends itself to helping us go through the design process. The cultural overlay used for the Golden Mile is Whāriki Te Whenua, which is a gift it's a mat, basically, and it was gifted by that phenomenon known as Whātaitai. And this mat, when you create a mat, technically, or this whāriki, it's taking all the different panels that you weave, and then you connect them together with one strand, single strand. And this allows you to add more panels to the mat, thus creating a larger and larger and larger mat. And this is how Whātaitai created the land, or the Wellington City as we know it today. So I've broken this kind of mat up into and laid it over the Wellington City in general, and then used it to break down this particular areas for Golden Mile. And in doing so, this allowed us to pick out the areas of cultural significance that intersect or are overlaid or are underpinned within the Golden Mile project itself, and allowed us to utilise all the other intersections that cross through the Golden Mile, looking at our past sites that intersect with the Golden Mile, and also our boundary lines. So all these areas of cultural significance, we've had the ability to actually embed those within the project, which is great for the project itself, and it allows us to culturally express these through visual design, which we've done. And I'll let Dan kind of showcase that, and you'll actually see a lot of the work when you visit go through the workshops. Hold up.
Kia ora, thanks, Len. So I'm just going to ask David Boyd and Alex from GW MetLink to come up and talk to this slide.
Is Liam going to introduce us?
So, I can introduce you, right? Yeah. Hi, everyone. So we've got David Boyd here from the Regional Council MetLink, and we've got Alex Campbell, who both have been involved with this project for a number of years, fully across it. So couldn't have better people in the room to talk to the bus aspect of the project.
Would you like to start talking about?
Yes, sorry, apologies, didn't realise I was talking right now. So yes, the project team, Let's Get Welly Moving, that worked on this project, looked at a number of interventions on the Golden Mile to improve reliability and travel speed for buses. So they're looking at The project looked to remove general traffic, close side streets, and optimise the bus stop spacing to maximise the number of people within a 5-minute walk of a bus stop with the fewest number of stops, so that where currently buses are taking 14 to 17 minutes in the peak to travel along the Golden Mile, the modelling that the Let's Get Welly Moving team did on this indicated that by doing these enhancements on the corridor, we can get the travel time improvements of 1 to 2 minutes in the peak. And another key area, which David will just talk to, is around some of the enhancements to make the customer experience better in terms of the waiting facilities and bus stops.
Yes, so a good proportion of our customers in Wellington City actually travel through and use the Golden Mile. So the design of the bus stops is really important, and currently we have a situation where our customers mostly sort of sheltered under existing building canopies, and we know from our own customer insights that they see that as pretty suboptimal in terms of providing shelter. We also had SEPTEP issues and poor perceptions of safety around Courtney Place and Manor Street. So the shelters that have been designed are designed specifically really to enhance that flow of the overall Golden Mile design, to separate pedestrians from bus passengers, to allow a much more sort of reliable and easier flow for both of them. But that's really important from a reliability perspective in terms of boarding buses. And because we've consolidated some of the stops, we're required to build shelters that actually provide quite a lot more shelter. You'll notice in the design that the pavement's been widened, so it's now very difficult to expect customers to stand under the canopy in some of those places. So the new shelters are away from there, closer to the curb, and one of the stops, in Central Courtney Place, we may have to accommodate up to 100 people at any one time in the evening peak, so we need to provide adequate shelter for them.
Thanks, David and Alex. Just got a couple of more slides on, are we going okay for time? Yeah? And I might just ask Dan Miles to come up here as well, just for these couple of slides. But a key benefit of the design is we're doubling the amount of trees in along the corridor. So Wellington City Council has a green network plan that we are enacting as part of this project. Very exciting. We are keeping as many existing trees as possible, but there are going to be some that will have to come out to allow for the new alignment. We've done a full tree survey with our project arborists, looking at the health of all the trees and trying to avoid, obviously, the ones that are in fantastic condition. But for every tree that does come out, 2 more will be going in. And we will be advance purchasing these as well, decent sizes, acclimatising them to the Wellington climate before they go in as well. So we also have rain gardens in and around Courtney Place and then near Midland as well, which is linked to the cultural heritage and narrative as well. But they are designed very well and won't get lots of still standing water. They'll only sort of fill up and then drain away again. Then the rest of the garden beds are what we call passively irrigated garden beds, so they're at grade, and it does mean that the stormwater does flow into them. So there are a lot of benefits in terms of the whole stormwater management of the garden beds. So they're more than just plants, but they're an integrated system. Did you want to add anything to that, Dan? Said it all. Yeah, got the mastermind Dan here. And then the dedicated bike lane, this is actually quite important. I know there's been a lot of commentary on it, but it's a key part of delivering our bike network plan for Wellington City. So it has been in the design since BC, since the beginning, and it is a separated cycle path as such. So we have the bus lanes, we have the rationalised crossing points, we have the bike path, and it's had a couple of safety audits on it so far. What you can't see is the sort of, I guess, the signs and the other sort of things that will go on the path to show that this is a movement corridor, scooters and bikes, slightly different to pedestrian walking, but it is still kind of considered it's not really a shared space, but people tend to sort of psychologically slow down when there's designs like this, and we've seen that across the country and internationally. Where there are crossing points or where people do need to move across a cycle path, the paving texture changes. So predominantly it's asphalt. But where these crossing points are, it's a different paving unit to signal to both cyclists and pedestrians that, hey, there's something going on here, there's a different movement, and this has all gone through the safety audit. What was mentioned before about the 3 and 4 metre pedestrian access way adjacent to buildings, that means that we have a separate pedestrian path that goes right next to the buildings, 3 metres minimum for Courtenay, although we are achieving 4 in a lot of places. And then you've got your furniture zone, and then you've got your cycle path. So there's been a lot of concerns about clashes between bikes and pedestrians. The way this design has been designed to really minimise a lot of that, because people are moving in different areas and different spaces. You'll still get people walking here, there and everywhere, and people will make a judgment call, if it's safe, and that's just the nature of cities. But it has been designed taking in account of those crashes to make it as safe for people as possible. Accessibility is a huge part of the design process, 2 accessibility audits, and we've also met with a number of accessibility groups. We've been to AAG last year. We were just about to go back to them before the disestablishment of Let's Get Wellington Moving, so we are due to go back to them one more time. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
Nope.
I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Blair and Allen. So we've seen sort of a bit of commentary kind of coming through, but we are just doing the south ends of Blair and Allen as part of our project. So it was a part of the traffic resolution for mid last year. There will be bollards at the end of the street, but they're going to be down most of the time. So emergency vehicles, those with permits still will be able to get through. So we're not expecting vehicles to have to sort of turn around or reverse out onto Wakefield. The bollards, we're working with our events team in Poneke Promise, and we're really trying to set up the streets so it's easier for people to have events, and having a system where you can put the bollards up easy is aligned with those wider city goals. We are also looking at, got event power plinths and lighting, gobos, all those kind of things to help with the amenity and potential for events and how people feel in the space, or how people, businesses or the city could theme events through the city. Paving, we'll just go over this quickly, but the paving shape is designed to be able to reflect the awa pattern and the pātiki that Len was talking through, and these will be located in areas where the awa once or does still go through, and then as Len said, it sort of dissipates out, and then the energy grows towards the next awa. This picture is a sample paver we've got coming over. It's a 3x3, so that we can test out the paving in terms of high levels of cleansing, spill coffee and wine on it and everything that you need, put different sealants on it, so we can really get a really good spec for the Wellington conditions. This is tried and true across lots of parts of the country. We've done a little bit in other parts of the city, but we want to get it right for Courtenay and Lambton. So these things you'll probably be quite interested in is around some of the review recommendations that we have come through, and particularly around a request from council to show how we can give higher priority to pedestrian space, including connections to public transport. So there is an existing slip lane at the eastern end of Courtenay Place, and the recommendation that we have in the design table at the moment is to remove that vehicle slip lane at Courtenay Place, but still have the cycle path through it. So that was always in the design, that was in at 80%, the cycleway. The key difference is that vehicle access we're recommending is removed. You can still get loading out in the corridor, Courtenay Place proper, because you obviously don't then need the entry and exit points to that slip lane. And the Regional Council has also agreed that after 9 p.m, their bus layover could also be used for other uses, pick up, drop off, because they have one on Courtenay Place. With the slip lane, it does mean we can also, if we take that slip lane out, we can keep the existing toilet block. So that was one of the design drivers for moving it to Allen Street at the end of last year. Also means we can keep those 2 gorgeous trees either side of that toilet block. And it reduces the amount of conflict between cyclists, pedestrians and vehicles. Now we've just got the cyclists and the pedestrians. So we're just also reducing, doing a minimum sort of work package along Willis and Manners around signals. That was part of our review, particularly around the bus infrastructure, making sure that we've still got those in as a priority. And on Lambton Quay, sort of reducing some of the works on the side streets, so still closing off the side streets down Lambton Quay, but just shaving off, a few metres on the side streets to reduce that square metre cost to the project, just to help us to bring the project within the affordability envelope. We assessed all of these against the benefits in a almost like a MCA criteria we went through, and anything that would put to threat to delivering on the benefits or didn't deliver the cost outcomes, like the cost was going to be more than the benefit, then those kind of didn't make through. But it was a 6-week sprint that the council did when we adopted the project from Let's Get Wellington Moving. That's probably pass back to Mandy, I guess. Yep, here she is.
Hi, everybody. So, look, as I said earlier, we have been down talking to businesses, and one of the specific topics that we talked about was the slip lane, and it was really important that we got some feedback from businesses around that. So, I think feedback overall is that it's a really tough economic time at the moment for businesses. So that kind of came through in all of the engagement that we had, and they certainly are worried about construction and what impacts that will have on them and their business. There was concerns in regards to loading zones and just making sure that there was loading zones available. Uber drivers, it's actually some restaurants are having sort of between 70 and 80 Uber drivers pick up deliveries on a good night, so making sure that that can still happen effectively. Loading zones overall have continued to be a concern, and we are looking if there's any additional loading zone options that we can put in place. The safety concerns around the bike lane with bikes and scooters, and in particular just wanting to ensure that we have some change control, some behaviour change in that area. There's concerns about potentially being close to dining, maybe going too fast and close to pedestrians, but equally there's also probably, given that otherwise scooters would be on footpaths, then having a dedicated space is good. Also raising concerns just around licensing and how that will work for current operators where they have existing licences, and some of the difficulties that they can have with changes to licences or new applications for licences, and how it will be able to be used with the new space, because there is quite a bit of feedback that people are really excited about the extension and the space that will be available, and they want to utilise that and harness it for business. So I think that's a positive, but how do we enable that? How do we make sure that it's easy for businesses to thrive in the area? So there's definitely a mix of feedback coming in. Some people are incredibly positive around the change. Some are in the middle, and some are concerned around what impact it will have on them. So the importance will be about how do we support businesses, and we will be having a table later on that we can talk further about business support and how the council will do that. Thank you.
Thanks, team. We've only got a few more slides to go, and then we get into the fun stuff. But I just thought I'd touch on some of the construction input and planning. So as part of the team that was stood up for design, some construction specialists were actually procured as part of that in a process called early contractor input or involvement. And so those construction partners in the previous stages of design, and also in the stage that we are in, are providing us some really solid advice around the smartest way to design for buildability, but also what it means from a temporary construction planning perspective. So what level of disruption do we think, how do we balance the level of disruption with construction productivity? There is a trade-off around moving fast and quick against low disruption or the light touch, and we need to try find the right balance for the team and the community, because it all will have a cost and time impact. But also, are there some smarter ways around, without significantly increasing disruption, can we actually achieve productivity gains? And an opportunity on the table that we're talking to Metlink around is to divert buses, or one-way divert buses along Wakefield Street. So essentially do a little bit of a pilot on part of what may become the Harbour Quays route. So the advice and kind of thinking around what construction phase could look like is really helping us make some smart decisions now, but as Mandy also touched, being able to work with businesses on a one-on-one perspective to understand what level of access we can provide them as we kind of determine the staging, or how big the chunks of work we will be able to carry out in a period of time, and also the cost impact of that. Also taking the opportunity to complete the condition assessment work for Wellington Water, and that really will help us finalise the designs for the must-do package of renewals that we're doing in parallel there. And so really what's next? So we've split our program really into 3 parts, and that's really to help us prioritise resources and costs, and also decision making. So the first tranche is really around the intersection of Courtney Place and the terraces. We've largely completed the design, and we are close to achieving our necessary consents and permits for that. We are looking to be able to award construction start late this year and really enable kick-off of the Golden Mile works in early next year. Determining our target start date was done in conjunction with talking to businesses who would be impacted by that zone of work. And as Mandy said before, there was a really strong theme about wanting to have the Christmas period to optimise retail and event activities. And so we sort of scheduled our start to follow after that. Then Courtney Place will be next cab off the rank. So Amy and the team are working really hard around finalising that design. And again, follows a pretty similar process around that design will feed into consents and permits necessary. And all going well, about Q1 next year, look to finalise some of the contractual stuff so that we can start works sort of late Q1, early Q2. And that will kick off the Courtney Place works. Right now, we think it's about a 2-year program, but that program will get refined over the next couple of months. And then our last tranche really is the Manners, Willers and the Lambton Quay works. So again, the same process of completing designs, applying for permits. We will not be doing the construction works relating to the Golden Mile in the next financial year. We are exploring an opportunity to do some investigative works, but really it's likely to be only after 2026 to align with the long-term plan phasing that would look to award the construction contract and start works there. So that's sort of where we're at. Won't really, the slide pack can be provided so you can have a read through what we're looking to start in January 2025. And again, there'll be a breakout session with myself and one of our construction partners to explore some of the planning work that we're doing further. And I might pass back to the chair, or Siobhan.
I've got a couple of questions. One, though, is important. It's a detail, but it's about the design of the bus shelters. So we have many times actually requested that staff and councillors be involved in the design. But I saw a model that concerned me, one, because it didn't have seats, and two, because it looked like it had gaps to let draft in. And I use the buses a lot, and I really liked to be sheltered and to have somewhere to sit. Can you please provide some reassurance on those matters?
Yeah, we do have David and Alex here. They will have seats, I can confirm that. The design,
They're very cold if they let in draft. They're honestly freezing.
Yeah.
So the design is a modular design, so it'll have panels on it that will be able to be adapted to each specific site to prevent exposure to the wind, and all shelters will have seating.
We also passed an amendment, and I was just trying to look for the minutes, about hostile design, that they shouldn't have hostile design, like lots of spiky, metal arms that make it actually pretty uncomfortable for people who are not a standard dimension or people trying to have children with them. But I see sharp design.
Yeah, I can talk to that. So it's a bit of a balancing act between providing for our accessibility audience and, pregnant ladies or others that need two hands like this to lift them up. So in some seats we've got that, but not in all of them. In our design manual, we've got some sort of conditions, design criteria around that. So, there will be some seats that have the longer spaces where groups might want to sit. So it's not intended to be hostile, but it is really just to us providing for the design criteria for the disability community and those with accessibility needs to be able to get themselves out of the chair.
And can I just check about the drafts at the back of the shelter, because it looks like the panels don't meet and there'll be drafts actually coming in from the back?
So the design, you'll see that the scale of the shelters is quite significant. So there may be, they're made up of pods. There may be 6 pods, for instance, at one of the larger sites to allow movement between the pavement and the actual waiting area. There will be some gaps between there, but largely the back of the shelters are covered.
Like secure from
Yes.
drafts?
Yeah.
Okay, and my next question from Loud One about the cycleway. Where does it go to? So it starts at Courtenay Place, and where does that lovely two-way cycleway end up? And does it connect to any other cycleway?
Yeah, so it was an integrated part of city streets. So there's, when it gets to Taranaki Street, the Taranaki City Street project did have dedicated cycle lanes on that as well. So that work has come back into Wellington City Council, but wasn't one of the 3 kind of priority to deliver this tronium. But there was also a branch down Dixon Street. So the best performing option that came out of Let's Get Wellington Moving was a contraflow down Dixon. So that would be heading away. And then the Courtenay to Victoria was an on-road kind of shared cycle facility. However, this area has been picked up as part of the Te Aro Park planning through Liam Hodgett's team, so it's being sort of encompassed within that project. But the idea is that once we deliver all of the bike network stages, that it will all be connected. Yeah.
Just super quick, Councillor, and we'll tell you about that next week. So you remember, councillors, you prioritised Dixon and a Cuba Street initiative as part of the City Streets package of work that came in from Let's Get Wellington Moving, and we'll be walking you through Dixon, which is the extension of this cycleway next week.
I'm not sure I've understood. So it goes from Courtenay through Dixon potentially to where?
Then it connects through to Victoria Street. That was what in it was called Southwest CBD package in the City Streets package under Let's Get Wellington Moving. But that's the idea. It connects to Victoria Street. So
okay,
yeah,
okay, and then stops.
No, well then you can go up and down Victoria. Of course, we've also got, there was a Willis Street component of City Streets as well, that connects up to Brooklyn Hall and also goes down to, we've got part of the Willis Street Cycleway as part of the Golden Mile, so we will have some boxes, cycleway boxes to allow for that. It's not obviously ideal that we share with buses, but that was like the best performing option than what we could do with the corridor space provided. So, so everything will connect up eventually. We've just got different phases for each of the City Streets projects, so probably maybe it's just a matter of us or the team kind of mapping that out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and some really good things here. First question, has the money been secured for around the bus stops?
Currently, the Regional Council is waiting on the NRTP funding, which I believe is coming, the decisions will be early September. Is that correct? Thumbs up, yep.
Okay. Look, I want to support the comments of my colleague, and I do use buses at all times of the day and night. This isn't just a commuter thing, and with children and all the rest of it. So why are the walls been removed? Because that is a brutal stop on Courtney Place. It's really, really uncomfortable when it's heavy rain, and I personally do appreciate the walls, and the people that I travel with seem to appreciate the walls as well because it keeps them dry.
And is this the walls on the bus stops you're talking about?
Yeah, and also the gaps to allow for movement, that will allow the rain in as well. So has any testing been done on different weather conditions? Because it is really unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, the Regional Council is sort of in early phases of design, and it has to go through a detailed design process, but they have really strict criteria for the comfort of passengers at their bus stops as well. So, you know, they're creating design briefs and all of that. So
okay, but it's at the early stages. Okay. The next question I had was just around the pedestrians along the building line. At the moment, that, for example, is not happening outside Capital, where the. So, are you saying that people? Where will the cafe tables go? Will they go out in the middle of the pavement, and then you can walk along the building?
At the moment, so it's sort of case by case for every street. So Capital and Embassy haven't got in the design as it stands at the moment, a dedicated outdoor area away from their building line. So that's slightly different, I guess, to Courtney Place proper. But the idea in the policy is to have a clear way. However, you know, there's a transition phase, you know, but at this stage we're not proposing to make any changes to Capital's outdoor area.
Okay, I'll dig into that later. And then just my last question. I do support cycling, as people know, but I'm just wondering if you can just talk a little bit more detail about how you're going to reduce that conflict between pedestrians and cyclists, because it should not be a space, from my perspective, of commuting. It's already quite a busy environment at all times of the day and night. So, like, how fast will the cyclists be able to go? And how are you going to stop that conflict when people are just trying to navigate their way?
And I understand that question, particularly when we see scooters flying down Cuba Street and the likes, so totally get where you're coming from. I guess the design has been designed based on more of a shared space philosophy in terms of materiality that has been chosen. There will be markings on the road, on the pathway, you know, for the giveaway and associated signs. But what we have seen with shared spaces like this is that people tend to slow down because there's a little bit of uncertainty and there's other people walking around. When we did the Bond Lombard Denton project, there was huge concerns that pedestrians were going to crash into vehicles, and so we put we agreed to a monitoring process post part of our safety audit. So monitoring is a big part of this project as well, and it's around that sort of change behaviour. So.
And just last question, sorry, 5 minutes. I did a timing last night and I didn't walk really fast, but I walked between Courtney Place along to Manor Street. It took 7 minutes, and yet one of your staff said it was 5 minutes. So can you just talk a little bit more about...
Well, I guess...
Again, I'm able-bodied, and if it's rainy, that will be possibly longer.
And I guess if you should be no more than 5 minutes from a bus stop, depending on where you are. Like if you walk from one bus stop to the next, and that's going to be more than 5 minutes. But if you're, say, I don't know, 3 minutes away from one bus stop, or give or take to 250 or 200, the idea is that the person would walk to the closest bus stop to them, and that should be no more than a 5 minute walk. So
maybe you were just window shopping along the way.
Oh, no, the bus was taking ages.
It's now Councillor McNulty's question time.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So there was a story in the Post last week with some comments, this might be for you, Siobhan, from Simeon Brown, that any changes in the project means that the entire project needs to be rated against the new GPS. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that going to the specifics of that, it's got to be a change in the scope. So if there's any change to the benefits that are going to be delivered by the project, then it would have to go back. So the design review that's been undertaken ensures that there's no impact on any of the achievement of the objectives or the benefits that can be realised from the project. So in that terms, the scope hasn't changed.
So if councillors were of the mind to move the cycle lane or retain extra bus stops, we could basically jeopardise millions of...
That would be a change in scope and would have to go back to NZTA.
Okay, and so that puts us in a situation then that if councillors were of a mind to actually remove the cycleway, is it fair to say the most cheap way to do that is that we actually have to build it per the design, then change the classification after it's done?
I think if you want to guarantee that funding for the remainder of the project, yes.
Cool. I've got two more, but I can come back on another round.
So thank you. So the dedicated bus lane, does that mean that the pavements will be dedicated for pedestrians, or we still have the nightmare of cyclists on the pavements?
I guess cyclists can ride anywhere, but technically they're supposed to be on the cycleway, and it will come down to monitoring and enforcement. But having the dedicated cycle lane means that it'll be easier for cyclists because there won't be pedestrians. Kind of. I know. He's looking at the. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what penalties would there be for cyclists going on the pavement?
Well, we're looking at enforcement and monitoring at the moment, so we haven't got a.
Mean like jail, cut off their heads, and pound the bikes.
Maybe if they're repeat offenders, or knock someone over, then yes. But no, we're just working on that with our enforcement team at the moment.
So the other thing is about the slipperiness of the pavement, which is great.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about the slipperiness of the tiles in Te Aro Park?
So that project has been looked at again through Liam Hodgett's team. So another project on that. So that's not actually within our project, but they're slippery when they're wet. Yes, no, they're glazed. So no, totally here. Yeah. So
And could you just explain the temporary bus route? I couldn't work out
sure.
what B's and L meant, and I couldn't even work out which buildings.
Yeah. We'll pop the slide back up again, but basically by diverting one lane of the bus traffic, that can actually speed up our construction quite a bit. It allows the construction team to do a bit more, and the idea is that it would go up. So Taranaki, here we go, we've got the arrows. So the yellow line is Courtney Place, and then the blue line is going up Taranaki, up Cambridge, around the bend to Wakefield, and then back down Taranaki. And the idea is still have the bus stops quite close to Courtney Place. Yeah.
So the B stand for possible bus stops, temporary bus stops, and the L stands for a layover. Where bus drivers can work. Yeah. The embassy's where one of the B's are. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect timing. My question was also related to this. I was just wondering from a, more strategic point of view, when we're looking at this alternative routes, are we considering things like some of the congestion that might exist around the times where we do want to have peak flow through there, and whether we might need to be working, through the regulatory process around whether we designate bus lanes and things like that to ensure that the space is, moving people efficiently even during the transitional period?
Yeah, we are working through that with our corridor access team and with our construction contractor, and also, meeting part of a lot of businesses as well. But it is being looked at because we are assessing it against everything else that's happening in and around the city. There's a lot of works, a lot of Wellington Waterworks, lots of stuff happening at Te Ngākau. So, taking that big picture, wider look.
Cool, thank you.
I just was wondering, I'm sorry to harp on about the bus stops, but how much customer feedback has been sought on, for example, the new ones that have been put in usually have fronts as well. I'm thinking of Kilburnie, which is a very exposed place, and they actually have partial fronts. And I know that a change was made to actually make them more weatherproof, because there's nothing worse than waiting in the rain, basically, for 15 or so minutes for a bus to come and you're freezing. It really is a hypothermia risk sometimes in Wellington. So my question was, how much have you actually sought the views of the public over what they prefer when it comes to a shelter?
Well, we, based on our sort of pretty good experience of providing shelter to bus passengers, that's been part of our brief, our learned experience through previous construction, and our last large shelters we built were the ones at the hospital and at Kilburnie. This is a slightly different brief because we have to provide for that flow in quite a busy pedestrian area. So the brief here is a bit more about balancing that flow and providing that shelter. I just will add, though, that one consideration we are adding to our shelter construction now is safety. So the enclosed shelters that were referred to earlier in Courtney Place really aren't of a safe standard. We had an incident in Bunny Street in Lower Hutt where there were assaults occurring inside shelters because they don't allow people to escape, so they can be trapped in those spaces. So this design is really something that we'll be considering more, and as always, because we do know that shelter from the wind and rain in particular is a concern for customers, that will be a high priority, and as I said, we'll be assessing every site in the detailed design to ensure that we provide that.
So sorry to hop on again, but like the ones in Kilburnie do have a shelter external as well, because some people don't, some people are claustrophobic, but there is places where you can shelter outside of the main shelter and still be covered from the rain. I mean, has any thought been given to that kind of thing?
Well, these will provide both that and shelter for people who want to feel like they're a bit more enclosed through their design.
Okay.
When we have the breakouts, I'm happy to show you.
Yeah, that would be good. And the other thing is, I think there was a legitimate concern about the seating being close to the cycleway. And for example, at Freiburg Pool, we've actually put some little tiny kind of enclosures that make it clear that there's space where there's tables there is separated from the main cycleway.
Yeah, we've received similar feedback from people wanting to use the space. So Amy and the team are also looking at kind of the flexi furniture and how we can use flexible planting and texture to be able to create a bit more separation. One of the things we're keen to do is keep the space flexible for the next 10, 15, 30, 50 years of use. And so the space is there. How people want to use it will shift and change, through the course of time. So this, the spaces will be demarcated only as necessary in terms of being able to separate out particularly where different modes need to happen. But particularly when we're talking to businesses and through the application for people who want to encroach into pedestrian or into footpath space, we can kind of work with them on a one-on-one to tailor that a bit more.
I thought that might be the answer, and that's a good answer. Just nice to know that there are some options.
Kia ora, thanks for the mahi. Just mostly questions around business and comms, actually. So just wanted to clarify, was there a timeline or an estimated timeline for finishing each stage of the project?
We're still in sort of what I would call macro level planning. Our work over the next 3 to 4 months, particularly for the intersection and the first couple of years of Courtney Place, we'll start to refine that. We're a little bit still away from locking that down for Lambton Quay and the Manners End. But as Mandy said, we're trying to give people certainty, particularly those who will be directly impacted. If we can achieve at least 3 months of forward warning for them, great. We're trying to aim for 6, but obviously we need to finalise the design. We need the construction planning work to occur, so that when we go out to them to tell them something, we're not having to change it as more detail comes out. Mandy might want to add a bit more to that.
Yeah, I think it's a balance of giving that certainty, not over-promising. You know, if we set a timeline, we absolutely have to meet it, and so being really clear about that. And I'm always testing that as we go out with our plans. You know, how certain are we? How much is moving? Because the last thing that we want to do is indicate that we're doing something that doesn't happen. That's really frustrating for people, and they lose confidence in the information we are providing. So that's critical as we go forward. So again, coming back to having real certainty within the project, all of the mahi that the team are doing now is trying to get that certainty, which sometimes means we have to wait a little bit longer. But, you know, we're better off to wait a little bit, get that certainty, make sure that we're actually delivering credible messages than rushing it.
Yeah, okay. Just a little bit more on that. The business concerns that you're hearing at the moment, are they mostly about concern about the time of construction or post-construction or a mix of both?
I think it's fair to say it is a mix of both. I think that there are a number of businesses, residents in the wider community who are definitely indicating that, you know, Courtney Place is tired, it's run down, it really needs to be revitalised, and they're very supportive of that. But of course you do have businesses that it's change, there's impacts for them, and so that's a worry for those businesses. It also comes back to construction. Yes, people might be really supportive of the end result, but how do they make it through that construction, which is going to be disruptive, and how can we support them best?
Yeah. So then just on that, have you got like consistency around communication channels so that businesses can go into somewhere to see what's going on or see what's coming up? Just someone they can talk to personally. That kind of,
Absolutely, and that's key as well. So multiple channels, because one channel's not going to suit everybody. So we've already set up a newsletter that goes out on a bi-monthly basis. We'll have updates on the website. Part of us going out and having that boots on the ground approach is so that they do have somebody trusted that they can pick up the phone and call. They can email. They know they can reach out, and so we're continuing to build those relationships. I have said to everybody, it will not be the first time you see us. You will see us multiple times. Now, I would also say that people aren't always going to be happy about this work. We're kind of really clear that, look, I recognise that, but what we can do is provide you with the relevant information. We want to be here so that you can reach out and get that information. We can provide you details of what the impact will be for you and how we work together to try and minimise that disruption as much as we possibly can, while being realistic that it will be disruptive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just probably a point of detail. In terms of the road space for buses, is that bus only lanes, or are cyclists allowed to use them?
If it is a bus-only lane, it's supposed to just be buses. If it's a bus lane, then it can be joint. So that's there was a huge amount of debate on that during the design period. But the idea is that, cyclists don't use bus-only lanes.
So the bus lanes through Courtney Place are bus-only lanes?
I'm pretty sure through that spot's been resoluted, but that's not what it's bus lanes through Willis. Yeah, that's right, team. We're going to get Roger to come and talk. He said yes.
Yeah, so,
he said yes.
So I can confirm,
right.
Councillor Randall, the Courtney Place is bus only.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to come back to the point I had earlier. So when Let's Get Welly Moving was disestablished, the government expected us to go out and re-engage with businesses. We've done that now, and I've seen Carl Tiffin-Bicker's list of things that he would like us to change, but we're in a position where we're essentially substantively unable to engage with that feedback without putting at jeopardy government funding. Is that the situation we've fallen into?
I could answer that. So fundamentally, the project was set up at the SSBC stage to deliver on some key objectives. Any changes to those key objectives, like Siobhan said, would be a change to scope, and that would put funding at risk. So when businesses come to us with suggested changes that they would like to see, that's what we're looking at. What this council approved was a SSBC with specific objectives, a design that met those objectives. Any changes to the design that affects those objectives affects what council has approved for us to do. It also has the related aspect of it could subject us to a funding decision, but ultimately what we're trying to do is deliver to the objectives that the council said that we need to deliver to.
Okay. Just on the water side of it, someone once said to me that between Lambton Quay and Courtney Place, it's kind of like a state highway as far as water infrastructure because of the demand that's pulled out from, central city office workers in the other. Is that a sort of fair summation of the criticality of the water assets?
I would, yeah.
There are, I haven't heard that analogy of state highway. There are a lot of critical assets in this corridor. There is one of the pieces of work Let's Get Wellington Moving did on the Golden Mile was work with Wellington Water around prioritising those assets. And so you've heard the term a must-do list, that we actually built a concept design and priced. And so the funding approval that went through the LTP aligned to that must-do list. We are holding within the funding that we have some level of contingency to manage surprises and unexpecteds. And one of the challenges or things we need to work through quite carefully is with the very constrained corridor, the actual space to move assets. So it's because you've got lots of things and pipes and conduits in a fixed, curb to curb line. The construction methodology, if we can slip line it or cover it, it means we don't have to cut out a piece, put in something temporary and then put in a permanent. So there's a little bit more detail in the planning, and that's why this condition assessment's quite important for us, because it'll tell us, can we actually slip line these pipes so that we don't need to juggle around the space and actually put in a new line. So in a few months, hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit more detail on it, but that's where we're at today.
Yeah, last one. So the intention, though, really is to tie the urban development and the water renewal aspects together, though, so we don't get the situation that's been brought up to us in Thornton Quay, where there's been an argument that we should be doing those things together, not as separate
Correct.
projects.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's addressed through the Golden Mile project.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. The Kilburnie bus stop, just as an example, now I only use that once a week, so that's not my normal patch, but it's still a pretty brutal environment. So can that just be taken on board that we really need to do some hard testing about what's going to, and I'm talking about people who use buses a lot, not just people who drive into work and then look at a bus shelter. It's quite a different experience. My big question, though, is around conflict between buses and pedestrians, not just with cyclists. This area is quite a complex area, right? Because it's a residential area, it's a business area, and it's an arterial. And bus stops are being removed, and you're trying to increase the speed of buses. Why would that be a good thing in a heavily pedestrianised area, given how big buses are?
I might ask one of the GW people to come up, but also just wanted to clarify, speed is a little bit different to reliability, so how quickly the buses move.
And I think I heard the word was being used, and I guess my concern is that given it is a pedestrian area, just getting buses through is not actually the main objective in the Golden Mile, generally. You try and do that when you get out into the burbs a bit more.
Yeah, so when we're talking speed, just to be clear, the current speeds we're looking at is an average of about 8 kilometres per hour. Some sections of the Golden Mile and the Peak down to 5 kilometres per hour for buses. So buses at peak are often doing not much faster than a walking pace. So the advice we've had is that we should be aiming ideally maybe for an average of 14 kilometres per hour, which would bring us more into line to some international guidance. So it's not that we're saying buses would be doing, I don't know, huge speeds. It's just bringing that average up so that we have buses moving faster than a walking pace.
I've gone after thousands of buses and I don't think I've been able to generally outrun them. And I guess just the other thing is that the thing I would see is that bus stops are actually public infrastructure, right? They're like schools, they're like hospitals. They're really, really good because they make it easier to use public transport. So in removing them, I guess can you just talk a bit more about why that advantages us and particularly I'm interested in obviously people living in the inner city because that's the ward I represent. But obviously the people who are commuting need a reliable trip through too.
Yeah, and this is where I have to paraphrase the original project team that did the analysis on this. They started from a first principles approach of looking at access, because obviously you can minimise walking distance by having, well, continuous bus stops along a street. If you have very few bus stops, obviously the bus will go faster. So they were looking at optimising that spacing to make sure that people in the central city are all within 5 minutes walk of a bus stop, but to balance that spacing so that people's journeys, so for instance at Metlink we regularly get customers telling us the bus is too slow, this bus is constantly stopping. Everyone, yeah, so it's just balancing that spacing, which is what the project team on this did. So they did catchment analysis, they looked at having 1 stop pair, 2 stop pairs, 3 stop pairs, and they landed at 5 as being about the best balance. So in the case, for instance, of the St James stop specifically, the alternative will be at the main Courtney Place stop, which will be approximately 200 metres away, which is a 2 to 3 minutes walk. I guess when we look at comparator cities, which is again where they looked at the guidance on this, George Street stops are up to 600 metres apart. If you look at some central cities in European cities that we might like to aspire to be like, spacings of 400, 500, 600 metres and not out of the ordinary. Again, I'm paraphrasing what that project team, their work, and then that stop spacing was key to some of the travel time and reliability benefits that this project is aiming to deliver.
200 metres on a rainy, cold night is a long still way to go. So yeah, so we need better shelter. Anyway, I'll take that offline. Thanks.
The question that I've been passed on, but also have an interest in, is just from the engagement perspective, whether you had any chance to have a chat to DCM down there about particularly our community that are primarily occupying the street at the moment.
Not directly, but I have been in meetings with them, so not on an individual basis, but it's certainly a really large consideration. And as we move into construction, it's going to be really important that we're actually looking after those people. They need to know as much as anybody what work is coming and how do we support them during that time. So yes, high on the radar for us.
Perfect, thank you.
What's next?
So next, you get the opportunity to do a few breakouts. There's 4. So finding out more about business support that we've got going on, transport operations, safety and accessibility, and also construction planning. Where are each of those going to be, team?
So the bulk of them will be at the back here. Business support in the first instance, so there'll be 10 minutes for each session. So you'll be able to do a few of the different breakouts. The first 10 minutes for business support will be in the room next door. Thereafter, business support will be back in here, and the room next door will be for construction planning. So if you want to do business support either in the first 10 minutes or construction planning in the second 10 minutes, you'd be next door, but otherwise everything else will be within this room.
They don't get to do anything. Right, they've got the option. Only Terry, isn't it? Yeah, they were warned that it wasn't. Very
Come over here.
cool.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Probably the right thing. Yeah.
Well,
Or definitive.
but it directs, but this is what's so weird about transport, right? Because the GPS should direct the Ministry of Transport, which then directs.
Yeah. Take a video and then hold it. Yes.
Yeah, they're just absent, right? They're just nothing. So, and the C seems to report directly to the Ministry of Transport, which is really odd. Oh, which one's, that's design. No, you can go next door. Okay. Yeah, go next door if you want to do business support and what construction planning. Hello.
So. Signage of signal. Little tweaks like that. There's little things like on the road safety audit. Quite some still working.
Everybody can look at it. You're on line with your paper based, you know, avenues. Yeah, great.
Connect rooms with your rubbish.
Yeah, and we'll continue to do that. And you know, as we go out, we get the feedback and actually they don't.
And it's really interesting. Buses. really the second stop. And benefits that you could savings. The difference. It's huge for and we're having a bit of a fast track. This is true. Bit of
Okay, so people.
We're just going to adjourn and closing remarks.
For those who are online, we're just adjourning the meeting until we come to the closing remarks. So what would that mean in terms of them coming back on if they want to?
The live stream.
Okay, so we'll just turn it back on then. Thanks.
briefly gather at the end of this session? Not sure, is there a group in the other room?
No,
We hurried them? Oh, yeah, no, all good. I don't think there's much is going to happen, Sarah. No, we won't make any big decisions. Councillors? Councillor? Yes. So I just want to. So I am now Tim Brown. But I am going to be much nicer. So I just want to thank everybody for all of the information that went into this session and how much work it represents. And Siobhan, maybe a closing comment?
I can just make, yes, so I would just like to thank all of the externals that took time to come to support the briefing, and as well as our amazing project team, in particular Sharon and Amy, thank you, and Mandy for your wonderful presentation. Just a reminder, next stop briefing on all things transport will happen on the 3rd of September. So that is where you'll get the briefing from Liam, Vida, Sean, and Tim in support on the Wellington Transport Plan. This next week.
Yes.
And then lots of
Exciting
other things
stuff.
beyond that.
All right, and the slides will be from today will be distributed, so we will have those. How soon? As soon?
Oh, we can send them out this afternoon.
This afternoon? Now? Oh, now, very, very soon, if not immediately. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.